What's up, gamers? Now, I don't know whether you noticed or not, but I was away from SkyBlock for quite a long time, and also partially YouTube. And I didn't really take notice on what happened around here. One thing that did catch my attention, though, is the most recent design thread for the foraging update. And to summarize the important points real quick, it basically introduces the foraging update as a 1.19 update to us, and they also say if it goes well, they might update the entire game to 1.19. And I think this is amazing, and for multiple reasons. I'm assuming I'm definitely not the first one to figure this out, but my first thought was, oh my god, we can have elytras. After thinking about it again though, I realized that it may not be that skyblocky anymore. But then I noticed, how cool would elytra courses be? Similar to stuff like the dojo, it would offer fun side games, but since elytra flying is client-side, ping hopefully won't matter. Unless of course the hoops are moving, which, yeah, that would be real annoying. And not only the elytra would be a new unique item, but also crossbows and tridents. In the design thread they mentioned a fishing update that never happened because of the lack of ocean features in 1.8. This new fishing island would have a massive lake full of fish, and I see the trident as a way to diversify mobility tools like the AOTE and the grappling hook, by perhaps disabling teleports underwater to force the use of a riptide trident instead. Maybe future dungeons could also work without teleports, but instead you'll have ponds in the middle of most rooms, which then allow you to get secrets. This will also make clearing a lot harder and a lot more fun, since you can't just teleport away from all the danger you find, but rather you would use bonzo staffs or tridents to swing yourself around the entire dungeon, and that would also have way more skill involved than just using an AOT. And honestly, I love using bonzo staffs, so I think this is a really cool idea. And as for crossbows, they can shoot bloody fireworks, which would add variety to the ranged playstyle of the game, since right now it's just mindlessly spamming right-click on a bow. Also, just like the trident, crossbows could be implemented as a mobility tool as well. Imagine, for example, a very powerful crossbow that is given enough firing power to not only give the arrow kinetic energy, but also the player. Just like in all the pirate movies, right? And sure, this could also work with a normal bow, but being able to charge the crossbow beforehand and use it at any time is way cooler. And the same thing can be said about mobs as well. Now, while I do love seeing SkyBlock developers getting very creative with adding unique mobs within the bounds of 1.8, such as the old Kudra tentacles being upside down withers, and these new things from the Rift update, I do think having access to an entirely new batch of mobs from 1.9 and above could only be a good thing for the game, since the same vanilla mob doesn't have to be reused as much anymore. Additionally, 1.19 offers a bunch of new blocks such as Deep Slate and these Warp blocks, which are used as grass in this example and look absolutely fantastic. If 1.19 is also extended to all of SkyBlock, I can't imagine what people are going to do with their private islands. I know I'm definitely going to make mine look nice. While the 1.9 combat mechanics are hated a lot in traditional PvP, I do think in SkyBlock they can actually be very useful. And we can see that because if we look at SkyBlock swords right now, there are only really two good options in the game. And that's because damage is the only important criteria to judge them off of. If you were to add individual attack cooldowns to each sword like in 1.9 and above, it could make some forgotten swords like perhaps the Midas sword relevant again if they are given the correct attack cooldown. Now, I do understand for this you have to do an entire rework of the currently existing attack speed stats, since it allows you to get 100 attack speed with any sword anyways right now, making the stats sort of redundant in my opinion. Updating to newer versions will also make the game less mod dependent, since for one, bug fixes don't have to be dealt with using mods anymore, like Patcher for instance. And also, because a few newer features like bigger crop hitboxes and glowing entities would come from the vanilla game itself. And don't even get me started on offhands. I think there's such a cool feature that could also be used to replace the dungeon maps from mods. And if SkyBlock would have its own resource pack, God knows what useful information they could display on the offhand. Right now we are in a state where it's basically required to use mods for SkyBlock, which also raises the problem with malware, of course. In this state, a lot of new players that don't want to, or simply can't download all of these mods are basically excluded from the game, and therefore the less mod-dependent SkyBlock is, the better a new player's experience will also be. Now this all sounds very good, but you might be wondering about the new 1.19 chat reporting system, where Microsoft has the full control to straight up ban you from multiplayer if a different player reports you. Well, I'm here to tell you that on Hypixel, that luckily doesn't work, so you're going to be safe. A real downside of this transition, however, will unfortunately affect my fellow dungeon geeks, and that is that stonking will no longer work anymore in the newer versions. And honestly, I would also be totally fine with that, since trading in the ability to stonk for 1.19 features is absolutely worth it in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments though, since this is a bit of a controversial change, and I'm actually really interested in seeing some counter arguments for this. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and have a nice one. Goodbye.